Welcome to Against the Tide, the podcast where extraordinary social change makers share their stories and their wisdom. Against the Tide is a celebration of courageous women who create lasting impact by daring to forge their own path. We'll dive deep into powerful themes such as the complexity of identity and how it influences the choices we make, embracing change even when it feels uncomfortable, and how breaking free from labels can unlock your true potential. Join me, Jo Metcalf, to hear stories of incredible women who, by swimming against the tide, prove that extraordinary things can happen. Welcome to Against the Tide with the unstoppable Charlotte Harris. Charlotte, we've known each other a short time, but early on I could see immediately that your story was one of strength, ambition, and turning adversity into independence. From caring responsibilities as a child to building an international business, you've consistently chosen courage over comfort. Let's start at the beginning, shall we?
Yeah.
Excited.
Let's go.
Let's go. You had to grow up fast. Can you tell me about your early years?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Jo, for inviting me on the podcast and for this opportunity as well and that lovely introduction. Let's take it right back. I mean, I struggled to speak about my childhood for a really long time, but now I'm in a place where I actually know that it shaped me into the person I am. So when you speak about courage, it's definitely why I'm where I am now. So right from being a young child, my parents split when I was 5 years old. And that kind of season of my life is a little bit of a blur. But right from that happening, I realised that I was in a dynamic at home that maybe wasn't quite normal when I was growing up around my friends. That was different to what my school friends had at home. My sister and I lived with my mum on our own, and I quickly realised that my mum had quite a severe drinking problem and was an alcoholic. And it's really strange looking back on it now, because as a child, I was almost in this self-defense mode of protecting the family home, not letting anybody know what was going on, making sure my mum was okay, taking care of my sister, and really taking on like a role of strength for my little sister. And we were just two peas in a pod, and we still are today, just this unbreakable bond of figuring things out, which I can remember. And that took me to the age of 11, which was, now I realise how young that was, but how old I felt in that moment, how responsible I felt.
What happened when you were 11 then?
So me and my sister used to spend every other weekend with my dad. That was like the arrangement at the time. And at that age, no one, including my dad, knew what was going on at home with my mum. And my dad, my stepmom was in the car as well, was driving me and my sister back on the Sunday, pulled up on my mum's drive, and I just vividly remember the neighbour running across the street. And I just remember breaking down like, no, because she was about to tell my dad what was going on. And the reason the neighbour knew was because me and my sister used to have to go round to the neighbours asking for alcohol, asking for cigarettes. They used to see us trying to stop my mum getting in the car, used to see all kinds of things going on, the door being left open, me walking my sister to school. And I just knew that she was about to tell my dad what was actually going on. And I had this unbelievable fear that she wouldn't be able to cope on her own if we weren't there. And that's what happened. So she mentioned to my dad what was going on, and that was the pivotal moment where everything changed, because social services got involved. We were then taken away from my mum immediately, and then a big investigation started. So there was a court case which lasted for months. So me and my sister were being interviewed constantly at school. We would be then taken from a social worker to visit my mum, and then a big change happened when months later, the decision was made that we would live with my dad, which I am so forever grateful for my dad. I can't tell you how much of a pivotal role him and my stepmom have played in my life. You know, she took me into her home, having a baby herself, my stepsister, took me and my sister in like we were her own, and just cared for us, and still does today like a mother. And both of them are just absolutely incredible. But that was such a difficult moment for me, because I actually denied to the courts and social workers what was happening, and it was my sister that was honest, because I just had this awful fear that something would happen to my mum, and that it was my responsibility to make sure that she was okay, because I think I almost took on the role of mother even though I was young, which sounds really crazy to say now, and even now I struggle to speak about that, and there's a gap in time then where I actually can't remember, actually completely no idea like what happened, because it's gone. And I think that must just be like a trauma response. But then the years that followed, we had varying times where we didn't see my mum for months and months, had no idea where she was, if she was okay, if she was safe. Then we would again, and then throughout the rest of my life, it's been very, oh, she's in our lives again, she's okay, and then nope, she's not again. And it's something that I still struggle with massively, because for a long time I held the belief that if I meant enough, she wouldn't do this. But now I realise it's not anything to do with us. It's a struggle that she has, and I know if she could, she would change. So yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
My early years were also filled with dancing, and I think that now, actually looking back on that time, that was my escape, that was my release, that was my outlet. I used to be a ballet dancer, so I trained all the way up to the point of 11, which is where I then started to get scholarships. I was working with Northern Ballet and went on to do things with them. But that's what allowed me to find kind of a normality in a very abnormal situation. And then when I was 11, my sister and I were taken from my mum, which obviously created a big shift in my life, and then changed friend groups, changed schools, moved. But I think that now that early childhood shaped me into the woman I am today, in every way possible. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned from going through something like that so young as a child is that I feel so much gratitude for it. And I also recognise that there's no hard feelings towards my mum in any way. It's all actually understanding of that, her mindset, her behaviours, her challenges is the way that she is, and it's not my fault, not in my control. And yeah, I think that gave me a real springboard to do things that were maybe abnormal, to go down paths that take risks, and just be the person that I am today.
And you're achieving extraordinary things, so we'll dive into that. But that must have been challenging, so thank you for sharing all of that. And you said at the beginning there that you've struggled for some time to talk about your background. Why is that?
I think a large reason for it is that my mum still struggles to this day. So it's not ever a chapter that's closed. It's still very real, very raw. I'm just older, and that dynamic's still very difficult. So I find it's difficult to speak about and be honest about, because it's still there, if that makes sense. And I also think that I tried to, when I was younger, pretend that wasn't part of my life, and that wasn't the situation I had at home, especially going through ballet school. Everyone around me seemed to come from quite a prestigious, privileged background. And I always used to joke that I was like Billy Elliot. Like I felt like the odd one out, but was trying to fit in. But now, as a grown woman, I can openly speak about it, because actually I think there's strength in sharing a story, because I know that I'm not the only one that's ever had a turbulent childhood. And if I can share my story and where I am now and the things that I've been able to come through and learn through, then I believe there's power in someone else being able to find comfort in that and know that they can do it as well.
Amazing. So your background could have held you back, but instead it's driven you forwards. What do you think helped you do that?
I think there's a few things in it. I think I gained a lot of independence. I think having to stand on my own 2 feet from a young age gave me a drive that I maybe wouldn't have had otherwise, because I had to figure it out, I had to find a way, I had to be independent. And I also felt a responsibility for my sister to make sure that we were okay as a unit. I also think my dad shaped a big part of, you know, the journey then, because he taught me so much about, you know, working hard, and it gave me safety, security, love and connection. My mum, although she has also had and has so many struggles, she always used to speak so much belief into me. So she would always tell me to follow my dreams. My mum actually has a very artistic background, so very creative, very much wanted to achieve things but struggled, so pushed me to do it and believed in me and spoke those words of affirmation to me, even in difficult times, and gave me a lot of love. So I think, yeah, collectively, that really helped me.
Amazing. And you and your sister are still really close, and being the older one, that must be a lot of responsibility as well. How do you deal with that yourself?
We're like chalk and cheese, my sister. We're peas in a pod, but we're total chalk and cheese. I think that I don't know what I would have ever done without my sister. We always just battled through everything together. Even though at times we dealt with things very differently, we've always anchored each other back, grounded again, and always both been very driven in different ways. So I've kind of gone more down the, I'm going to be a professional dancer, and I'm going to create a business, and I'm going to work for myself, and had this sort of free spirit, I guess. And my sister's very driven in a career sense. So she's done incredibly well. She's now an accountant. She's really, you know, really successful in her own right. And we have always said to each other growing up, how did we end up like this? Like, it could have gone so the other way. And like, what was it that made us not do that? And I think it was having each other, like rocks throughout all of it, that we gave each other a bit of a light all the time, a light at the end of the tunnel to nudge each other along. If one of us was having a really hard moment, we never had that at the same time. We would balance each other out. And I think that helped us growing up and then into adult life. No matter what happens, we always know that we'll get through it because we've got each other.
Amazing. And when we first met, you, I could see that you were a big thinker, dreams big, etc. Where did that belief in wild dreams really come from?
I think it's a really good question, and I don't think there's like one moment that shaped that. I think a lot of where I have a expansive mindset comes from actually the performance industry. And I think because going down the route of training to be a professional contemporary dancer is a route that a lot of people would say, that's not a career, that's not going to happen. And I've always been like, if you tell me that, I'm definitely going to make it happen. Like, that's just the type of person that I am. But also the resilience of being rejected and being knocked down and having to work for something over a long period of time. I've seen in myself and in others how if you really want an end goal, to get from here to here can take a significant amount of time. But if you're willing to do the small, seemingly insignificant daily habits, then you can do anything. I really believe that you can just totally reinvent yourself. You can, if you have a thought, if you can see something in your mind, you can bring it into reality. The only thing that's stopping you is you. So I think that, yeah, my time as a dancer really shaped me into that kind of bold, big thinker. And then also over the years, just coming across podcasts and YouTube clips and personal development. I don't actually know why I found personal development when I was younger. I don't know if it was by accident. I can't remember if someone said it to me, but I started to listen to people who were thinking big, achieving big things, not normal or not who I was surrounded by. And it opened me up to a world of, well, if it's possible, then we can do it. And why can't I? So, yeah, I think when you've got not much to lose, you've got everything to gain. So there's just no risk. You can just go for it.
Brilliant. And that sense of not living small, living big, that's really what I've definitely got from you. Motherhood forced a huge pivot in you. How did it change your relationship with work?
Everything shifted when I became a mum. Before I had my little boy, I was working 12 hours a day. I was self-employed. I was working in the fitness industry at the time. absolutely loved what I was doing, loved helping people, never thought that I wouldn't want to have that kind of hands-on work all day. And then I became a parent, and it was like an instant shift, which totally took me by surprise, and I didn't expect it. But I just felt this overwhelming sense of connection to my little boy, and this almost anxiety and a worry of how could I give him to someone else to look after while I build an income. It felt very disconnected. And I don't know if that comes from, partially we were in a kind of global lockdown. I had him attached to me all day long. We didn't know anybody else. But I think bigger than that, it was like a craving to have such a strong bond because I'd lacked that. And that changed my relationship with how I viewed work and a career, because suddenly the most important thing in my life was this human that I knew that time was just going by so quickly, and he was growing so fast that I just knew I needed to find a way of actually, how can I create what I felt was impossible of being a kick-ass businesswoman and a mum, and how can I blend the two together, which I'd not seen myself before. It felt it felt like the options were separate as a woman, that I need to choose my career or I need to choose my family, and actually I wanted to have both. So suddenly my perspective on work and family shifted when I became a parent.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I've spoke to a few people around how, if you haven't had that relationship with your mum the same, how do you learn that, and how do you become the mum that you want? What have you learned through that process?
I think that through any challenging situation there's a lesson, which is why I speak so much gratitude of what I went through, because had it not been difficult, and had I not had that kind of disconnect and difficult relationship, I wouldn't know the importance of strengthening a relationship and actually how to create that connection in. And one of my biggest kind of fears, I guess, is not having that. So it's how to learn, you know, through just being present and being there, which I guess comes back to why I wanted to be at home, why I wanted to make sure that I was as close as possible so that I could foster that connection. But I think, yeah, it comes back to the lessons learned. I think in every difficult situation or failure or broken down relationship or anything like that, looking at it, kind of thinking, okay, why did this happen? How can I not model that behaviour? And how can I show up in a way that I actually want to be as a mum?
Yeah, amazing. Inspiring. So lockdown closed your business. How did you find the drive to start again, really?
Oh, great question. I think that lockdown was a real moment of pause and reflection. So there was definitely a season of quiet, I guess, and I'd just had a baby. But I really delved into entrepreneurship during having a newborn baby, which I guess a lot of people wouldn't do. They would be totally unplugged. But it was because I knew that if I pedaled as fast as I could in that moment, then maybe I could build something to a point where I wouldn't have to go back to doing what I was doing before. Maybe I could create something that meant that the hard work that I'd just done could give me a kind of platform to then grow upon, so that I would never have to lose that connection. If that makes sense.
Yeah, fascinating. I mentioned at the start that we've known each other a short while, but I've already seen that you're fiercely mentally disciplined, like anybody that I've ever met. Where does that mental toughness come from?
It's me. It's my soul. I think it's learnt behaviour. I think it's a practiced skill, like a muscle. I think the mind is a muscle that if you intentionally build discipline, you become more disciplined. And I've always been into fitness and wellness, and I think that by building discipline in myself in business or in other ways, it always comes back to knowing that I need to hit certain things within myself and stick to what I say I'm going to do to create that self-respect So, i.e., making sure that I'm getting up, I'm moving my body. I think that that creates a physiological response, so your energy's higher. So then you're more disciplined to do your tasks that you've set yourself. And also, I think the discipline now comes from the fact that I have two little people, two small humans that I made that I know are looking at me as they grow up as a role model. And I believe it's my responsibility to create the life that I've told them we're going to create. And that comes back down to being disciplined, because I don't believe in motivation. I think it is discipline and doing the things that you don't want to do over and over and over again creates, just a resilience and a strength. And I think maybe I'm quite good at being disciplined and doing hard things because I've gone through way harder in other ways. You know, I remember just not even knowing how I was going to get through the day when I was younger, even after the age of 11, just really finding things so challenging and so dark that I will never, ever, ever go back to that place. So now I just spring myself forwards and think forwards and think about creation and contribution and how can I add value and how can I help other people. And I think that comes back down to, well, I have to help myself first, because if I don't help myself, how can I help anybody else? How can I look after my children? How can I make a difference in the world if I'm not, doing all the things that I said that I was going to do or want to do or can see possible?
You did a post recently about they don't tell you on an aeroplane to put your mask on first for a reason. Do you want to expand on that in any way, linking to what you just said?
Yeah, the post was about how, as a mother, I think it's not selfish at all to actually put yourself first. And it was the post was around exercise. And actually, for a period of time as a mum, I felt that I was being selfish by going to the gym for an hour or working out, and actually I realized that it's just the same as on an aeroplane. You have to put your oxygen mask on and before you can help the person next to you, or before you can help your child, because you're completely useless if you're not taking care of your mental, physical, physiological, spiritual self. So I really believe in that, and I think there's a lot of power in that ownership as a woman to lean into what you need in order to then be able to pour into people around you that you love, and that love you and would want that for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. You've got such incredible self-belief. Have you ever doubted yourself?
All the time. All the time. And I think that this is such we see someone, don't we, and we think, oh, they're so confident or so resilient or so disciplined or strong. But that's absolutely not the narrative that goes on in here every day. It's like a good and a bad devil kind of thing. I can just now recognise when, oh, that's a pattern. That's something that I'm now repeating, and I need to shift that pattern and tell myself a new story. I think that it's just rewriting the narrative of what we tell ourselves. But yeah, absolutely. I also don't believe in, if you feel really confident all the time, I personally ask myself, okay, well, you need to do something that you're not confident in, because that's how you're going to grow. And if I do get myself to a place where I feel quite sailing, time to switch it up, time for a new challenge. And I actually have to thank my husband for that, because he's exactly the same, and he's really taught me that and given me a lot of self-belief in myself. Like on the days where I'm nervous for a podcast, or how am I going to do this, or I don't think I can do, speaking on stage, he's the first person to tell me I'm being absolutely ridiculous. Of course you can. And I think sometimes having that person, you can always borrow their belief in you, helps you then take that step and then step into it and realise you were being ridiculous and you can do it. But it's not that I have unshakable self-belief, because I definitely don't. I just know how to do it anyway.
Yeah, do it anyway. I like that. How much do you think self-awareness links to that self-doubt as well?
I think it's everything. I think without self-awareness, you're just going through the motions of life. And I've really learned a lot about how you can realize where you are. And then if you maybe want to make a change, one of the most powerful things that I've learned that you can do is model a behavior of somebody that has the attributes, confidence, self-belief, life, business, motherhood that you want to have, and sort of kind of think, what are they doing? What actions are they taking? How do they present themselves? How do they speak? What's their posture like? And how can I close that gap between where they are and where I am? And yeah, change behaviors and habits in myself. I think habits is almost like a pattern of things that we do subconsciously until we become consciously aware of it. And that's at the moment that you can change it, because if you're not conscious of what you're doing, then you're not going to change it. But if you can be aware of it, then that's powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. How do you keep going when things feel overwhelming?
I think sometimes I personally find it helpful to write down, what do I feel overwhelmed about? Because often what I've found is when I put something down on paper, it's not as big as what it felt like inside. And that helps to then recognize, well, what's overwhelming me? Which things can I control? What can't I control? Because there's no point focusing on the things that you can't do anything about. And then the ones that you can control, do you need to ask some accountability from someone to help you move through that? Do you need to, take certain things at a certain time and work through those? I think making sure that I write things down really helps. And then also talking about it with somebody who can understand definitely helps. And also I just understand that everything's not always easy or feels smooth. I almost expect there to be different things coming across my path to try and see how bad do you really want whatever it is that you're working towards, or whether it's a fitness goal or a business goal or anything like that. I think that we're tested more the more that we develop ourselves to see how badly you want it. But also I've heard the phrase lots of times, new level, new devil. Like when you reach a new part of yourself, you're going to get questions that you need to answer, and, things that you're going to have to work through, and overwhelming feelings are going to arise. But it is just that it's a feeling. It's not actually you. It's something that you can recognize that's almost separate from right here, right now reality. It's often a worry in the past or a worry in the future, not actually right now.
Yeah. Amazing. And you talked in there about things not always being easy. And what I find fascinating with you is your background and what's happened could have limited you, and you could have not continued to sort of push against that tide. And is there anything else that you want to say around why you keep pushing against that tide and why that really drives you?
I think if you have goals and dreams and ambitions that are bigger than yourself, then there's always something to step forwards for. Whereas if I was content and just where I am now and I didn't have any ambition to progress, then I think when something comes along to derail you, it is a lot easier to kind of pull the plug and just give up or quit or say, I can't do it, it's too hard. But when the goal is bigger than the fear, or when the goal is bigger than the, circumstance, it's just a moment. It's like a chapter. And I have people say this to me a lot, something will happen family-wise, or, you lose someone, or something happens health-wise, or just anything like that. How are you still being consistent? How are you still showing up? I don't understand where that comes from. And I think it's just a learnt behavior again of, well, it's what I know. I know that I can push through something by showing up again, by doing the things that make me feel good, as simple as nature, getting outside, moving my body. And I think I have a lot of accountability in sharing the journey and being open and vulnerable and honest. And that keeps me accountable, because I feel like I have a responsibility for the people that know and watch and listen to do it for them, because it's not just about me. It's about, I have to overcome my waves, challenges, difficult moments, so that they know that they can. Because if I quit on myself, then they don't have the hope that they need, because they might not have the mental strength. But if they can see somebody else doing it, then I hope that that gives people a confidence that actually you can.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
For our listeners, can you tell us a bit more about network marketing?
Yeah, network marketing. I mean, the one thing that people go, oh, is that a pyramid scheme? That is like the number one kind of stigma, I guess, that people come up with. And the answer, and I can speak about the company that I'm partnered with, New Skin. Can't speak about all companies in that network marketing space, because there are many, many, many of them. But network marketing, by fundamental, is the ability to partner with an already existing successful company that are manufacturing the products. They have the science teams, and they deliver, they deal with all the manufacturing, the paying of commissions. They do all the hard tasks that a normal business would have to do. We're then able to be the marketing on the ground using the products, which I work with incredible beauty and wellness products, from skincare devices to wellness products, supplements, a scanner that measures antioxidants, which I'm obsessed with coming from my fitness background. Share and recommend those products. People buy them from a link that I'm able to share. And then there's an option with network marketing to build a network of people that are doing the same. And some people, like myself, will want to go and grow and build leadership teams. They'll want to, build something perhaps in other countries, and scale something bigger. But where network marketing is a little bit different to a different business, we get asked quite a lot, so why are the products not in a shop? Why are they not in Boots or Harvey Nichols? And the reason is because rather than the company paying for the distribution and the marketing by a celebrity endorsement or a billboard, they pay those commissions directly to us. And then we work through those networks to establish those businesses, which makes it very much effort dependent, which is why sometimes I think the industry has a little bit of a opinion, because some people might not maybe have the skills or put the time in to make it work. But it also, I believe, is really empowering, because it's in complete control of me as to how I want to grow this and scale it and who I want to help. So yeah, that's a little bit about network marketing. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And you've, is it fair to say you've grown a global business now through this, and how many countries that you're working with around this product?
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's something that still baffles me to this day, because I had a 6-month-old baby, pretty much sat in my pajamas in lockdown when this began. And now we're in 11 countries, which has not always come from me knowing someone in Australia or Poland, but actually the network that I built has a sister or has a friend or a customer in another country. And then all of a sudden you've got this global scalability that I could never have done on my own. But also that allows you to meet people of different cultures. We've just expanded into India, which has just been so incredible, from the culture, the community, how family orientated they are. And it's meant that I can just learn so much in myself, not just in business, but just personally. But yeah, being able to build it in different countries is amazing. And New Skin that I'm partnered with is operating in 50 different markets. So if I can connect with people in 50 countries, I can build a business there. So it's almost the ability to build something whilst you're asleep as well, which I could never have done that dancing or personal training. That would be pretty tricky, dancing around the clock.
That would have been either hilarious.
I could try.
And how has your disciplined approach that you spoke about earlier contributed to your success in that space?
Everything. I think everything. And I would put it down to, there's a book called Atomic Habits and a book called The Compound Effect, but especially Atomic Habits, just really understanding that because there's a lot of no's, there's rejection, there's, stumbling blocks along the way, failures. If you can understand that actually you have to fail in order to learn, to grow and then step forwards, you have to be rejected, just like I had to be rejected as a dancer over and over and over again. Or you get dunked into a swimming pool without armbands on, you're going to have to come up for air and keep swimming. I think it's just the discipline of knowing that it's like a 1% improvement every single day, and that it takes time to build something substantial, whether it's a body in the gym, whether it's your health through the foods that you eat, whether it's a business, whether it's you know, compounding money in a bank account. Like everything takes time, and it takes small habits done consistently to achieve it. And I just knew that from the beginning. I didn't have unrealistic expectations in a short time frame. I knew I would need to give it 5 years and do the work for 5 years, not 6 months or 5 minutes. And I think that really, it just meant that it worked, because I was doing the actual business habits, whilst also working on my mindset, which I think the two actually go very hand in hand. A lot of people describe network marketing as personal development with a paycheck, and it couldn't be more true. I'm such a more expanded version of myself thanks to the industry, because it opened me up to leadership, personal development in a way that I never had been before. And I think that gave me a lot of comfort, and it gave me a place where I actually felt like home for the first time in my life, in a vehicle that I could help people, that there was meaning, that I was making a difference far beyond myself. And I think that is absolutely magic. And I don't know anything else I could do that could give me that level of satisfaction. Yeah.
Exciting. You said you'd listened to Holly Downs, Dan Houser's Money Mindset Coach podcast that we recorded, which I absolutely loved, and it taught me so much. How did your upbringing shape your money mindset? And if you want to talk about the podcast and how that resonated as well.
Yeah, the podcast episode was incredible. There were so many things that she said that I just massively related to, and I'm sure I won't be the only one, and how much I believe she's right in that as women we hold onto it so much as well. I did some money mindset work over the last 5 years, and I realised a lot about how I did have learnt behaviours from my childhood. You know, obviously my parents split up, so my mum raised us. She was really struggling financially, you know, for various different reasons. But I always remember phrases like money doesn't grow on trees. If you drive a certain type of car, you're a certain type of person. You know, things that, you know, oh, you can't have that, or no, you can't go on that school trip because we can't afford it, and that we can't afford it consistently kind of going through in your mind, which I did realise when I started my business, that I had this blueprint, this almost financial blueprint and belief system. And when I listened to that podcast, everything she said, I just resonated with so much of how, you know, you don't have to keep the words you're telling yourself. They are just words you're telling yourself. But she spoke a lot about pattern recognition, recognizing what you are saying, what words are you using, what language do you use. And I just think that is so true. In relation to money, and in relation to all the beliefs that we have, and how you can switch those patterns and change those behaviours. And I still think I've got work to do on that. I don't think it's an end journey. I think that we can always elevate the bar. We can always re-recognise what we say to ourselves. But I find it absolutely fascinating. And I really loved that episode.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Why do you think financial confidence is so important for women particularly?
I know that a big driver for me was to be financially independent. And it's because and I'm sure other women will relate, didn't want to ask for help. Didn't want to ask for money, didn't ever want to feel stuck. And I think that it gives you confidence. I think that money also allows you to help more people. You can create a bigger impact. You know, you can work with organisations, you can give back, you can, you know, do incredible philanthropic things, which otherwise you wouldn't be able to do. And I just think that it's never actually been about, for me, things. And I know we relate on this, it's how can I take my children and travel more around the world? How can I be the one that can treat my husband and be able to do that? And why shouldn't we as women be able to do, you know, amazing things? Because it's out there and we just have to unlock it. And I think it's a confidence thing, and I think it's an empowerment feeling as well.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact stat, but more money that goes in women's hands, more good is done in the world. So yeah,
she said it on the podcast too.
Yeah, it's probably where it came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? The final question is, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell her, and this is something that I learned much later in life that I just wish that I'd known when I was younger, that life's happening for you, not to you. And what I mean by that is, in the moment when things are happening, sometimes we can ask the question of, why is this happening to me? You know, you can be a kind of victim of your circumstances. Whereas now what I've realised at an older age is that all of those things had to happen to create who you are now. And that things are always happening, you know, in divine timing and on purpose. And it's actually going to be a blessing or a gift or a lesson. And so, yeah, I would wrap my arms around my younger self and I would let her know that it's happening for you, not to you, and that you don't realise what's coming ahead.
The excitement that's going to happen. Yeah.
That
Amazing.
all works out in the end.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Charlotte, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love learning from you, and you're such an inspiration, and taking the adversity and that you've been through and creating the strength and drive that you've got is phenomenal. I'm sure our listeners will leave inspired and ready to sort of swim against their own tide. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Jo. And if anything I said today can resonate with even just one person, then it was worth it. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Against the Tide, brought to you by Jo Metcalf and Louise Kavanagh. We're grateful to the team at Sticks and Glass in Leeds and Bison Studios in London, our inspiring guests and wonderful listeners. Subscribe to Against the Tide wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode.